I'm Kathleen, 28 years old, standing in the fancy waiting room of a top law firm. My eyes are puffy from crying at Uncle Walter's funeral yesterday. He rescued me 15 years ago when my parents walked out. The heavy mahogany door opens, and my heart skips a beat. There they stand, Frank and Elaine, my parents. After years of silence, they show up, decked in tacky fake jewelry, smirking about the fortune they think they'll grab. Have you ever had family pop up when money's on the table? Drop a comment, like, and subscribe to hear how Uncle Walter's clever plan revealed their true selves and left them stunned. My childhood in Pittsburgh was rough. We lived in a crumbling apartment where sirens sang us to sleep. Peeling paint, broken elevators, and a constant moldy smell defined our home. 4 of us shared a tiny one-bedroom, with Tommy and me crashing on a pull-out couch. Most nights, our parents were gone, leaving me to look after my little brother. My dad, Frank, worked odd construction jobs, but his real love was betting on sports. Paydays were predictable. He'd cash his check, hit the bookies, and vanish. Sometimes he came back happy, treating us to ice cream and big promises. More often he'd stumble in drunk, smelling of cheap whiskey, his temper like a summer storm. One minute, he'd sob about loving us. The next, he'd smash plates over cold dinner. "You're just like your uncle, always judging," he'd snarl when I asked about rent money. I learned fast to read his moods and stay out of sight. My mom, Elaine, worked at a makeup counter, pretty but fragile. She wore pricey knockoffs and fake jewelry, chasing a glamorous life she thought she deserved. To her, Tommy and I were burdens holding her back. "I could have been a model," she'd sigh, flipping through old photos. "I was meant for more before you two came along." Tommy, 3 years younger, was a sweet kid with asthma and a knack for drawing. He had dad's curls and mom's delicate face. From the day he was born, I was his shield. I made sure he took his meds, helped with homework, and kept our parents' anger off him. Food was scarce, so I got good at making peanut butter last days, slicing sandwiches into tiny triangles to feel fuller. I knew which neighbors might feed us if I hinted our stove was broken, and which school clubs offered snacks. School was my escape. I aced every class, knowing education was my way out. My teachers saw my potential and my struggles. Mrs. Winters, my 4th grade teacher, would slip me extra milk or granola bars on the sly. "You're a bright girl, Kathleen," she'd say. "Don't let anyone dull your shine." My best friend Lucy lived nearby in a cozy, middle-class home with parents who worked steady jobs and a fridge always stocked. Her place was my safe haven when my parents' fights got too loud. Lucy's mom never pried when I showed up at dinner. She just added a plate for me. My 8th birthday stands out. My parents forgot it entirely. I told myself I was too old for parties, but it stung. That night, I found a gift on my pillow, a plastic bracelet with purple beads, wrapped in comic strip newspaper. Tommy had saved his lunch money for weeks to buy it, and made a card from scrap paper. I cried myself to sleep, not from sadness, but from the fierce love I felt for my brother. I was 10 when Uncle Walter first visited. His sleek black car looked out of place on our rough street. At 35, he was just 7 years older than Dad but seemed worlds apart, tall, confident, in a sharp suit with a warm smile. My dad's older brother, he shared only their dark eyes. He brought Tommy a remote control car that lit up his face and gave me a book on women inventors, like he saw right into my heart. "You're like our grandmother," he said softly. She had that same curious spark. The air crackled with tension between Walter and Frank. Their words were sharp, loaded with old grudges. Not everyone got college handed to them. Frank snapped when Walter mentioned his successful company. And not everyone blames others for their failures, Walter shot back calmly. After that, Walter kept in touch, calling on holidays and birthdays, offering to pay for school, Tommy's meds, or a better apartment. Frank shot down every offer. "We don't need his charity," he'd growl. "He's just showing off." By my teens, things fell apart fast. Eviction notices piled up. The power went out for days. Our fridge held nothing but fast food condiment packets. Tommy's asthma got worse, but we couldn't afford his inhaler. I lied to my science teacher about a lost wallet to borrow money for it. One night, I overheard my parents whispering in the kitchen. "We can't keep this up," Mom hissed. "The landlord's done with us." "I know a guy who can help," Dad said. It's our best shot. What about Walter? Mom asked. I'd rather die than beg Walter for help, Dad snapped. This is just temporary, until I get back on my feet. I didn't grasp their plan then. I wish I had. The day everything changed felt oddly normal. It was a crisp October Thursday, leaves glowing with fall colors. I'd turned 13 the week before, ignored except for Mom's half-hearted happy birthday. That morning, Dad said we were off for a weekend trip to see an old friend. We never went anywhere, no money for trips, so I was instantly wary. Pack for a couple days, Mom told me, tossing me a duffel bag. Help Tommy pack too. I missed the red flags. Mom's too tight hug, her perfume choking me. Dad staring out the bus window, avoiding my eyes as Pittsburgh faded. Them packing one small bag while making Tommy and me pack extra clothes. After a 3-hour bus ride, we reached Millbrook, a town I'd never heard of. Dad led us to a plain house on a quiet street where a gray-haired woman stood on the porch. Kids, meet Margaret, he said. Our old friend who's letting us stay for the weekend. Margaret's smile was empty, not reaching her eyes. She was a stranger, but my parents acted like lifelong pals. Her house was neat but bare, with plastic-covered furniture and blank walls. After a quiet dinner of spaghetti and canned sauce, they said they were running to the store. Back soon, Mom said, touching up her lipstick in the hall mirror. Be good for Margaret. Tommy sat by the window for hours, his small face pressed to the glass, waiting for headlights that never came. As bedtime neared, he got anxious. Where's Mom and Dad? He asked, his breathing heavy, signaling an asthma attack. Probably delayed. I said, my stomach twisting with worry. They'll be back by morning. Margaret gave us a rollaway bed in a tiny back room. I lay awake, hearing Tommy's wheezy breaths and the strange house's creaks. Morning came, no parents. I called their phones, but a robotic voice said the numbers were disconnected. Margaret dodged my questions, fussing with breakfast and laundry. By day 2, Tommy spiked a fever, his asthma flaring without meds. Margaret finally called a doctor, who brought an emergency inhaler. While the doctor checked Tommy, I cornered Margaret in the kitchen. Where are my parents? I demanded. When are they coming back? Her shoulders sagged, her face aging instantly. I wasn't going to tell you yet, she said quietly. They paid me to keep you for a week. They said they'd return, but she handed me an envelope from a drawer. Inside was a note in Mom's flowing handwriting. Kathleen and Tommy, we can't go on like this. You deserve better than we can give. Don't look for us. This is for the best. You'll have a better life without us holding you back. Tears blurred the words. No, I love you. No real answers, just abandonment dressed up as sacrifice. That afternoon, Margaret called the police. They showed up with stern faces and clipboards, asking questions I could hardly answer. Child Protective Services stepped in. They split Tommy and me up for interviews, asking if our parents ever hit us. No. If they said where they were going. No. If we had other family. My uncle, I sobbed. Uncle Walter in Chicago. The worst hit the next day when they said we'd go to separate foster homes. Tommy clung to me, sobbing so hard his body shook. You can't take him. I pleaded. He needs me. He's got asthma. He's scared of the dark. But they didn't listen. Tommy went to a family in Ohio. I was sent to a Millbrook group home, waiting for something permanent. My last sight of him was his pale face in a social worker's car window, his hand pressed to the glass in goodbye. That night in the group home, surrounded by strangers on bunk beds, a cold emptiness sank into me. My parents had left us. Tommy was gone. I was utterly alone. 2 weeks dragged by in the group home. I barely ate, wouldn't talk to counselors or other girls, and stayed curled up on my bed, clutching the women inventors book Walter gave me. The only thing I brought from home. Miss Reynolds, my social worker, visited daily, trying to get me to open up. Her patience paid off when she said she was tracking down Uncle Walter Campbell. I bolted upright. Did you find him? Yes, she said with a gentle smile. He's flying in tomorrow to meet us. The next day, I fidgeted in the director's office, tugging at a thread on my borrowed sweatshirt. When Walter walked in, I hardly knew him. His neat look was messy, his eyes red from no sleep. Seeing me, his cool front collapsed. Kathleen, he whispered, kneeling down. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. For the first time since they left, I let myself cry. Walter's hug was awkward at first, then firm as his care took over. The meeting was heavy. Walter's anger at Dad shook his voice as he talked to Miss Reynolds. Frank did this. My own brother left his kids. He raked a hand through his hair. I knew things were bad, but this, where's Tommy? I need to see him. Miss Reynolds said Tommy was with a foster family in another state. Walter's face hardened. That's not right. They belong together. I'm their uncle, their only family besides their parents. I'll take them both. Getting Tommy back wasn't easy. The child welfare system was a maze, and even Walter's money and grit couldn't speed it up. Tommy's foster family in Ohio was considering adoption, and state lines made things trickier. Walter had to prove he could care for two traumatized kids. I'll do whatever it takes, he told his lawyer that night. Get the best family court attorneys. I want both kids with me by Christmas. While we waited for the paperwork, Walter rented a place near the group home to visit me every day. 3 weeks later, I was in his temporary custody and we flew to his Chicago home. His house felt like a mansion in a fancy area with perfect lawns and iron gates. My bedroom was bigger than our old Pittsburgh apartment, with a canopy bed and a closet full of new clothes. All this for me? I asked, stunned by the luxury. Of course, Walter said, a bit uneasy. The decorator picked stuff out. Change anything you don't like. That first night I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too silent without Tommy's breathing. At midnight, I found Walter in his office, buried in legal papers, arguing on the phone about custody. He wasn't a natural with kids. No wife, no children, just his tech company. He talked to me like I was a tiny adult, a bit stiff, but his heart shone through the awkwardness. The house staff made things easier. Flora, the housekeeper, was like a warm grandma, sneaking me cookies and teaching me to bake bread on weekends. Mr. Jenkins, the driver, cracked dry jokes that sometimes broke through my quiet shell. School was tough though. Walter put me in a ritzy private academy where kids wore designer clothes, planned European trips, and griped about screen time rules. I felt out of place with my rough past and missing family. Why live with your uncle? A girl asked at lunch. Your parents dead? They left, I said, watching her shock. She couldn't fathom parents choosing to go. Nightmares hit hard my third week in Chicago. I'd wake screaming for Tommy, sure he was having an asthma attack. Walter would rush in, scared and helpless against my pain. After the 5th time, he got me to Dr. Bennett, a kind therapist with graying hair who specialized in trauma. She became my anchor. Your parents' choices were about them, not you, she said in our sessions. You didn't cause this. You couldn't stop it. Walter took parenting classes and read books on teens. He got me tutors to catch up at school and made sure I had everything I needed. But our real connection sparked on my 14th birthday. He threw a small party with a few school friends I'd made. After they left, he handed me a wrapped gift. It's not much, he said shyly. Inside was a silver locket with a photo of Tommy and me from a rare family picnic years ago. How'd you get this? I asked, voice cracking. Asked your old neighbors, Walter said. Mrs. Winters had it from a school event. Thought you'd want Tommy close until he's back. That broke me. I sobbed in Walter's arms, letting out months of fear and grief. His hug was clumsy at first, then steady. I'm not replacing your parents, Kathleen, he said softly. I can't. But I'll never leave you, and I'll keep fighting until Tommy's here. That night, Walter opened up about his childhood with Dad. Their father was harsh, especially to Frank, who struggled in school. Their mom, before dying of cancer, made Walter promise to watch over him. He tried helping Frank, but got pushed away every time. I let him down, Walter said. And that meant letting you and Tommy down. I should have done more. You're doing it now, I told him. That's enough. 6 months after moving to Chicago, Walter's private investigator found Tommy in Columbus, Ohio. His foster family didn't want to let him go, but Walter wouldn't budge. Our first visit was watched by social workers. Tommy was taller but thin, his eyes huge in his face. When he saw me, he threw himself into my arms yelling, Kathleen, you came. I knew you would. I hugged him so tight he squeaked, noting every change. His asthma was under control now, thanks to his foster parents' care with meds. He was taking art classes, his talent blooming with real supplies. I was thankful they'd looked after him, but jealous of the time they'd had with him. Walter knelt down, smiling gently. "I've heard so much about you," he said. "Kathleen never stops talking about you." Tommy eyed him, then asked, "You our new dad?" Walter looked at me, then back. "I'd like to be your guardian, if that's okay. We'll figure out names later." Leaving that visit, Tommy gripped my hand. "Don't leave me again," he pleaded. "Never, I promised. Walter's bringing you home soon." He meant it. No matter the legal hurdles, Walter hired top lawyers, showed up to every hearing, and proved he was all in for us. For 2 years, Walter battled the system to bring Tommy back. State lines, the foster family's bond with Tommy, and doubts about Walter's busy career and single life made it hard. Walter never gave up. He reshuffled his company to free up time at home, fixed up a bedroom just for Tommy, and added a high-tech air purifier for his asthma. The day Tommy came back to Chicago for good was the happiest since our parents left. At 12, he was still small but healthier, his creative spark unbroken despite everything. Walter threw a welcome home party with balloons and Tommy's favorite chocolate cake. For the first time, the mansion felt like home. Walter parented in his own way. With no kids of his own, he treated us like young adults, explaining his choices and valuing our thoughts. Over dinner, he'd talk about Campbell Tech Solutions, his cybersecurity firm. "It protects businesses from hackers," he said, "like a digital lock and key." I was hooked on Walter's business world. Numbers clicked for me, patterns and forecasts coming easily. When he saw my curiosity, he'd bring home simple business problems to discuss. "What's your move here?" he'd ask, sharing a client issue or marketing puzzle. Tommy, meanwhile, thrived in his new arts-focused school. Walter turned a sunroom into his art studio, with top-notch supplies and perfect light. With proper care and less stress, Tommy's asthma attacks dropped from weekly to rare. We built our own family traditions. Sunday dinners were untouchable, no work or homework allowed. We took summer trips to national parks, Walter matching our slower hiking pace. At Christmas, we volunteered at a shelter before swapping gifts, Walter insisting giving back was part of our new life. On my 16th birthday, Walter handed me legal papers. He wanted to adopt Tommy and me, giving us his last name. "No rush to decide," he said. "Keep your name if you want. This doesn't change how I feel about you." Tommy jumped at becoming a Campbell. I wavered, caught between anger at my birth parents and loyalty to my old self. We settled on hyphenation, becoming the Morris Campbell siblings, blending past and future. The adoption finalized on a snowy December morning. We dressed up for the courthouse, where the judge, familiar with our case, smiled as she signed the papers. "This is how it's meant to work," she told Walter. "You've given these kids the stability they need." High school zoomed by with tough classes, debate team wins, and growing confidence. Walter never pushed college, but I knew it mattered to him. When top universities sent acceptance letters, I picked Northwestern's business program to stay home. Tommy's art kept shining, his paintings winning contests and landing him in a top arts high school. His gentle spirit held strong, proof of his toughness. Walter kept his promise to teach me business, but not how I expected. After my freshman year, he got me a job at Campbell Tech. "No favoritism," he warned. "You start in the mailroom like I did. Climb up by earning it." Over summers and breaks, I worked every department. Customer service taught me patience. Accounting sharpened my number skills. Marketing stretched my creativity. By senior year, I understood the whole company. I spotted a gap Walter missed. Small businesses needed affordable cybersecurity. I pitched a scaled-down, subscription-based service that opened a new revenue stream. "This is brilliant," Walter said, reading my plan. "You're presenting it to the board." At 22, fresh from college, I pitched to Campbell Tech's board. They loved it, impressed by my detailed research and rollout plan. 6 months later, with the division showing strong profits, Walter made me vice president of small business solutions. "You earned this," he said, handing me a business card with my title. "It's all about your skill, not our bond." Tommy, 19 and at the Art Institute of Chicago, designed the division's logo. His art had grown from simple sketches to bold digital and painted works, capturing our childhood's pain and hope in vibrant abstracts. Then tragedy hit. Walter, always vibrant at 50, got pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis was bleak, late stage, with few options. 6 months to a year, the doctor told us quietly. We'll keep him comfortable, but it's aggressive. Walter tackled his illness like a business challenge. He updated his will, sorted his affairs, and handed leadership duties to his team and me. He refused to let cancer rule him, fitting treatments around meetings and Tommy's art shows. No regrets, he told me one evening on the terrace, watching the Lake Michigan sunset. You and Tommy gave my life purpose beyond work. Those last 2 years were a mix of pain and grace. I juggled running the small business division and going with Walter to his treatments. Tommy moved back home from his campus apartment, turning part of his art studio into a cozy spot for Walter to rest while watching him paint. Walter outlasted the doctor's timeline through sheer stubbornness, living to see Tommy graduate with honors and me become executive vice president. But even his strength couldn't beat the cancer tearing through him. In his final week, Walter called me to his bedside and gave me his grandfather's pocket watch, a treasure I'd always loved. You and Tommy are the Campbell name now, he whispered. I'm so proud of who you've become. The morning Walter died, the sky was a perfect summer blue. Tommy and I sat by his bed, each holding a hand as he took his last breath. The grief was heavy, but I felt deep gratitude for the 15 years he gave us, turning us from abandoned kids into strong, capable adults. He saved us, Tommy said at the funeral. Not just our lives, but our hearts. Walter's funeral filled Chicago's biggest cathedral, showing his impact on business and charity. Hundreds came, executives, janitors Walter knew by name, even the mayor, who spoke about his tech contributions. Rivals and loyal employees cried for a boss who treated them like family. Tommy, now 21 and working at a top New York gallery, flew in. He played a piano piece he wrote for Walter, its haunting notes weaving our sorrow and thanks. I gave the eulogy, finding strength to share about the man who changed our lives. To most, Walter was a brilliant leader and generous giver, I said. To Tommy and me, he was the one who loved us when we felt unlovable. Showing family is about choice and showing up every day. As I finished and sat down, I saw 2 figures slip in at the back of the cathedral. Even after 15 years, I knew them instantly, Frank and Elaine, my parents. My hands shook so hard Tommy noticed, his face paling as he followed my gaze. Is that? He whispered. I nodded, speechless. Frank's hair was graying, his strong frame softened by time and probably liquor. Elaine's polished look now seemed forced, less elegant. After the service, in the reception hall, they approached. Elaine reached for a hug I refused. Kathleen, sweetheart, she said, her voice dripping with fake emotion. We've missed you. I stepped back. Tommy stood close. Don't touch me, I said softly. Frank coughed. We came when we heard about Walter. Blood's thicker than water, you know. We're family. Family. Tommy's voice broke. You left us with a stranger. Never called, never wrote, never cared if we were alive. Elaine's eyes welled with crocodile tears. You don't get it, sweetie. We had hard times. We thought it was best for you. We need to talk alone, Frank added, eyeing the crowd. There's so much to explain. Before I could answer, Gordon Chin, Walter's lawyer and friend, stepped in. Tall with silver hair, he stood between us and them. Miss Morris Campbell, Mr. Morris Campbell, he said formally. These people weren't invited. Elaine flashed a fake charming smile. We're Frank and Elaine Morris, their parents. We're family. I know exactly who you are, Gordon said, his voice ice cold. Walter spoke of you never kindly. Frank bristled. We have every right to be here with our kids. Gordon didn't flinch. You lost those rights 15 years ago. But you're needed Friday at 10 o'clock at my office for Walter's will reading. Elaine's fake grief vanished, her eyes gleaming with greed. Walter put us in his will. That's for Friday, Gordon said. Now the family needs to grieve in peace. As Gordon led us away, I noticed their clothes, new but cheap. Frank's gold watch was a fake Rolex. Elaine's diamond earrings were cubic zirconia. They were still faking success with nothing real behind it. That night, in Walter's too-quiet house, Tommy voiced his fears. Why would Walter include them in his will? Why show up now? They smelled money, I said bitterly. They always could spot a payday. Gordon, joining us for dinner, nodded. You're right, Kathleen. But you both need to be at the will reading Friday. Walter was clear about who should be there. Tommy frowned. I don't want them there. They don't deserve a cent from Walter, Tommy said, his voice sharp. I get it, Gordon replied softly. But you'll want to be at this will reading. Walter had his reasons for how he set things up. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I roamed the silent house, ending up in Walter's study. Everything was untouched. His glasses sat on a financial report, his favorite pen in its holder. I sank into his leather chair, breathing in the faint trace of his cologne. What's your plan, Walter? I whispered to the empty room. What's your last lesson for us? Friday morning was bright and clear, a perfect September day that clashed with the knot in my gut. Tommy and I reached Gordon's law firm 15 minutes early, dressed up to honor the moment. The office, in a grand old Chicago building, oozed wealth with oak walls, Persian rugs, and stern portraits of founders. Gordon met us in the lobby, his calm presence steadying my nerves. They're not here yet, he said. We're in the main conference room. Coffee or water? We shook our heads, too anxious to drink anything. At 10 o'clock sharp, the elevator opened, and Frank and Elaine stepped out. They dressed up in new clothes, Elaine's hair freshly dyed, her makeup perfect. Frank's thinning hair was slicked with too much gel, his aftershave hitting us first. Good morning, Elaine chirped, like we were at a casual brunch, not dividing the estate of the man who raised us. Gordon led us to the conference room where others waited. Flora, Walter's housekeeper for 20 years, Martin Weber, Campbell Tech's CFO, and Jessica Leong, Walter's assistant. Everyone's here, Gordon said, sitting at the polished mahogany table. He opened a leather folder and adjusted his glasses. This is Walter Edward Campbell's last will, signed 6 months ago, fully witnessed. Frank squirmed, impatient. Can we skip to the good stuff? Walter was rich. Gordon's eyes were cold. Mr. Morris, we follow legal protocol here. If that's a problem, wait outside until your part comes up. Frank quieted, but I saw his excited glance to Elaine. Gordon read the legal opening, then listed Walter's gifts. He left big sums for education, medical research, and arts charities. His alma mater got funds for foster kids' scholarships. Flora cried when Gordon said Walter gave her the lakeside cottage she loved and a fund for her retirement. Longtime staff like Jessica and Martin got generous bonuses. Frank grew restless as Gordon read on, checking his watch and muttering to Elaine. Their greed was obvious. Now, Gordon said, looking up, we address Frank and Elaine Morris. Frank sat taller, nudging Elaine, who put on a fake somber face. To my brother Frank Morris and his wife Elaine, Gordon read. I leave $1 each, plus a letter to be read aloud now. $1. Frank shouted, his face red. This is a sick joke. Control yourself, Mr. Morris, Gordon said firmly. I'll now read Walter's letter to you. He opened a sealed envelope, revealing pages in Walter's neat handwriting. Frank and Elaine, Gordon read. If you're hearing this, you've done what I knew you would, shown up after 15 years, chasing money like vultures. Elaine gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. You don't know this, Gordon continued, but I tracked your actions before and after you abandoned your kids. 3 days after leaving Kathleen and Tommy with a stranger, you demanded $50,000 from me to stay quiet about your part in separating us from the Tommy kids. Tommy stared at me, shocked. We'd never heard this. For 15 years, you tried to extort me 13 times, Gordon read. I saved every call, email, and message. 5 years ago, Frank, you threatened to lie to Kathleen and Tommy, saying I paid you to vanish, a cruel falsehood that would have crushed them. Frank's face went pale. Elaine shook her head, as if denial could erase the truth. Gordon paused, then hit a remote. A screen lowered, and a video played. Frank, drunk in a cheap motel, slurred. Walter, the kids don't need to know our deal. 50 grand's nothing to you. Just help family, right? Or maybe Kathleen should hear how her uncle got custody. The video switched to Elaine in another setting, hair different, time clearly passed. Be reasonable, Walter, she said slickly. We could have fought for custody. We could say you kidnapped Kathleen, that we've been searching. Want her to believe that? Wire the money and it's gone. Gordon stopped the video. Silence filled the room, broken only by Tommy's shaky breaths. As you can see, Gordon continued, reading Walter's letter, I kept detailed records of your extortion attempts. Your crimes go beyond bothering me. My investigators found your scams across states, tricking elderly people, and trying to extort other business people with the same tricks you used on me. He looked up. All this evidence, including records of money Walter paid early on for the kids' sake, went to the FBI this morning. Elaine sobbed loudly. It's not true. It was all Frank's idea. I never wanted to leave the kids. Frank jumped up, his chair crashing back. You can't prove this. It's your word against ours. Actually, Gordon said coolly, the evidence is solid. Walter was thorough. He went back to the letter. To Kathleen and Tommy, I'm sorry I hid this from you. I didn't want to add to your pain. You've faced enough betrayal. Every cent they tried to take is now documented and will go to groups helping abandoned kids, turning their greed into good. Tears ran down Tommy's face. I grabbed his hand, holding tight. The rest of my estate, Gordon read, including all Campbell Tech shares, properties, investments, and personal items not already given, I leave equally to my beloved children, Kathleen and Thomas Morris Campbell. I trust they'll carry on our values and legacy. Gordon folded the letter. That ends the will reading. The door opened, and two men in dark suits flashed FBI badges. Frank and Elaine Morris. One said, "Come with us. We have questions about fraud across state lines." Frank lunged at me, face twisted with anger. "This is your fault. You turned him against us. We're your parents." Agents grabbed him as Elaine wailed dramatically. "My babies, don't let them take me," she cried. As they were let out, Frank yelling and Elaine begging, I felt empty instead of triumphant. Their true colors were bare as promised, but it didn't feel like a win. Gordon waited until they were gone. I'm sorry for the scene, but Walter wanted it this way. He needed them to face the consequences for what they did to you and others. Did he really pay them? Tommy asked quietly. Once, Gordon said. After getting Kathleen's custody, they threatened court battles and lies. Walter paid to keep them away, for your peace. He called it his best investment. After the agents took them, Tommy and I stayed in the conference room, reeling from the truth. Everyone else left, leaving Gordon with us. I don't get it, Tommy said. Why come back now? Did they think Walter would give them anything after all this? They see what they want, I said, staring at their empty chairs. They've always thought they deserve what they never earned. Gordon cleared his throat. Walter knew you'd have questions after this. He left you each a private letter. He handed us envelopes with our names in Walter's bold handwriting. Mine was on his favorite thick stationery, several pages long. Kathleen, it started, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've seen the showdown with Frank and Elaine I planned. Forgive me for hiding their repeated money grabs. I wanted to spare you their greed. I learned of my illness 5 years ago, earlier than I told you and Tommy. My first thought wasn't my death, but your futures. I knew they'd show up, chasing inheritance. You might wonder why I staged this public reveal instead of cutting them out quietly. I wanted you to see their abandonment wasn't your fault. You deserved parents who'd fight for you. Instead, you got Frank and Elaine, who treated you like bargaining chips. I've seen you grow from a scared, hurt 13-year-old into a brilliant, kind woman who amazes me every day. Your strength, resilience, and ability to build good from betrayal are rare. I regret I won't see all you'll do, but I'm certain you and Tommy will keep thriving, supporting each other, and maybe helping other kids who need someone to believe in them. With all my love and pride, Walter. I folded the letter slowly, my fingers trembling on the crisp paper. Tears welled up, blurring the edges of Walter's handwriting. It was like hearing his voice one last time, calm and steady, full of that quiet encouragement he always gave. Across the table, Tommy sat with his head bowed, his own letter clutched in his hands. He wiped his eyes with the back of his sleeve, sniffing softly. We didn't need words right then. The silence spoke for us. He knew, Tommy whispered after a moment, his voice barely above a breath. He knew all along they'd come back for the money. I nodded, feeling a lump swell in my throat. Swallowing hard, I couldn't get a word out. Walter had protected us even in death, seeing through Frank and Elaine's schemes long before we did. It hit me how much he'd carried alone to keep us safe. In the weeks that followed, the shock from the will reading lingered like a heavy fog. We dove into the details of Frank and Elaine's hidden life, piecing together what the FBI uncovered. Their 15-year absence wasn't just running away. It was a trail of deceit. Small-time cons dotted the map from Pennsylvania to California. They'd pose as heartfelt charity workers, knocking on doors of lonely seniors, spinning tales of needy kids or disaster relief. Other times, they'd show up as handy home repair experts, overcharging for shoddy work that fell apart weeks later. One scam stood out in the reports. They'd pretend to be long-lost relatives, using public records to target vulnerable elders with fabricated family trees. "You're my great-aunt," they'd say, weaving emotional stories to extract cash for emergency needs. They kept each hustle under a few $1,000s, just enough to avoid big investigations. Always on the move, they'd pack up and vanish before complaints piled up, leaving broken trust in their wake. Walter's compiled evidence turned the tide. He'd saved everything: emails, voicemails, even bank transfer records from those early payoffs. The court case flew by, no drawn-out drama. Frank and Elaine took plea deals to dodge a trial they couldn't win. Frank got 7 years in federal prison, Elaine 5. The judge tacked on restitution orders, millions they owed victims, but we all knew they'd never pay a dime. It was justice, but it felt cold, like closing a book on a chapter I'd rather forget. I mulled over visiting them in prison for days, turning the idea over in my mind during quiet moments. Part of me wanted answers, to look them in the eyes and ask why. But another part knew it was pointless. What would be the point? I asked Tommy one Sunday over dinner. We'd kept our tradition alive, now in my cozy downtown apartment with its view of the bustling city streets. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air, but neither of us had much appetite. "They won't suddenly turn into the parents we needed," I added, poking at my plate. Tommy nodded, pushing his food around with his fork. "I agree," he said, his voice thoughtful. "But does it make us bad people for not even trying to keep some kind of relationship?" He looked up, his eyes searching mine, still that gentle kid at heart despite everything. "No," I said firmly, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "We lost our parents 15 years ago, the day they left us with Margaret. The people rotting in those prison cells are just strangers who happen to share our DNA. They look like us, maybe sound a bit like us, but they're not family. Walter was our real parent, in the way he showed up every day, fought for us, loved us without conditions. That's what matters." Settling Walter's estate became my full-time world in those early months. Papers stacked high on my desk, endless meetings with lawyers and accountants. I balanced running Campbell Tech's small business division, where my subscription service was thriving, bringing in new clients daily. At the same time, I guided the new CEO through Walter's old role, sharing insights from years of watching him lead. It was overwhelming. Nights blurred into days, coffee my constant companion. But it kept me moving, kept the grief at bay. Tommy headed back to New York for his gallery job, curating shows that drew crowds from across the city. We talked every day, quick calls or texts about little things, a funny exhibit, a tough client at work. He flew to Chicago at least twice a month, crashing on my couch, filling the apartment with his laughter and sketches. Those visits were lifelines, reminding me we weren't alone in this. 3 months after the will reading, inspiration struck during a quiet evening walk along Lake Michigan. The waves lapped gently, and I thought of Walter's fight to reunite Tommy and me. I decided to honor him in a big way. Using a chunk of my inheritance, I launched the Walter Campbell Foundation for Family Reunification. Its mission was simple: help siblings torn apart by foster care find each other again, and reunite when possible. I poured my heart into it, hiring a small team of social workers and lawyers who shared the vision. We started with online databases and support groups, then expanded to legal aid for custody battles. Every case reminded me of our own. Kids like us, scared and separated, needing someone to believe in them. It felt right, like turning our pain into purpose, just as Walter had taught. Healing didn't come in a straight line. It twisted and turned, some days smooth, others rough. Anger at Frank and Elaine would flare up unexpectedly. A news story about scams? Or a random memory from childhood. I'd imagine storming into their prison cells, demanding why they left us, why they kept coming back to hurt Walter. Why couldn't you just be parents? I'd whisper to myself, fists clenched. That's when I turned back to Dr. Bennett. She'd helped me through my teens, and now, in her cozy office with its soft lighting and calming plants, she guided me again. We unpacked the emotions their reappearance had stirred. The betrayal, the confusion, the lingering what-ifs. In one particularly hard session, tears streaming, I admitted the hate weighing me down. Forgiveness isn't about absolving them, she said gently, her voice steady. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of hatred. Let it go, not for them, but for you. 6 months after Walter's death, the foundation hosted its first charity gala. The ballroom sparkled with lights, donors mingling over wine and appetizers. That's where I met Michael. He was a structural engineer, tall with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. We chatted about the foundation's work, and he listened, really listened, as I shared snippets of my story. No pity, just genuine interest. He didn't push for details I wasn't ready to give. Our relationship bloomed slowly, like a careful build. Coffee dates turned to dinners, walks in the park where we'd talk about dreams and fears. He shared his passion for designing bridges that connected places, and I saw parallels to my work connecting families. It was built on mutual respect, a shared curiosity about life. For the first time in years, I felt a quiet hope, a sense of moving forward without forgetting the past. Tommy was killing it in New York's art scene. His paintings, bold abstracts swirling with emotion, hung in respected galleries, snapped up by collectors. One show featured pieces inspired by our childhood, colors clashing like our parents' fights, then softening into hope. He used his growing fame to advocate for arts in underserved areas, setting up scholarships for foster youth. Art saved me, he'd say. It can save them too. Watching him thrive filled me with pride, like Walter's legacy living on through him. A year into Frank and Elaine's prison terms, a letter arrived from the women's federal prison in Kentucky. The envelope was plain, the address scrawled in a hand I barely knew. Inside, on cheap-lined paper, Elaine's words shook me. Kathleen, I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't deserve it. What we did to you, Tommy, Walter, and others was unforgivable. I'm not making excuses, but I want you to know one truth. I've always been proud you're my daughter, even though I failed as your mother. I stared at the page, rereading it under the kitchen light. Pride. From her? It stirred a mix of anger and curiosity. I didn't reply right away, letting the words simmer for weeks. Walks by the lake, talks with Michael, sessions with Dr. Bennett. I weighed if any tie to her was worth it. In the end, I decided on one visit, before her release the next year. Closure, maybe, or just to see. The visit was brief, the prison visiting room cold and sterile, buzzing with fluorescent lights. Elaine had aged hard, her face lined, hair gray and unkempt, no trace of her old polished facade. We sat across a scratched table, guards nearby. She asked about Tommy's art, my work at the foundation and Campbell Tech. Her eyes lit up as I spoke, seeming truly interested. No pleas for money, no excuses for the past. As time ran out, I stood to leave. She looked up, her voice soft. I don't expect to be in your life, Kathleen. I just want you to know I see the extraordinary person you've become, despite having us as parents. The words hung there, raw and unexpected. I paused, a truth bubbling up that I hadn't voiced before. I didn't become who I am despite you, I said evenly. In some ways, it was because of you. Your abandonment pushed me to Walter, and he taught me unconditional love. I wouldn't trade the person I am today. Every experience shaped me, even the pain of being left behind. I walked out, the door clanging shut, feeling a strange lightness. I never visited Frank. He hadn't reached out, no letter, no call. His silence said enough. Some bridges are meant to stay burned, ashes scattered to the wind. I'd made peace with that, no regrets lingering. 3 years after Walter's death, the foundation hit a milestone. We opened Campbell House, our first brick-and-mortar spot in downtown Chicago. It was a welcoming haven, soft lighting, comfy couches, play areas for kids, with counselors on hand to ease the emotional roller coaster of reunions. We named it after the home Walter built for us, a place of safety and love. The open house celebration buzzed with energy. Families mingled, sharing stories over punch and cookies. That's when the most profound moment hit me. A 12-year-old girl, braids swinging, approached shyly, a handmade thank you card in her hands. Her eyes sparkled as she handed it over. "Your foundation helped me find my little brother," she said, voice bubbling with joy. "We were separated for 3 years after our mom got sick. I thought I'd never see him again. But now, his foster family brings him to visit every month. And get this, they're talking about adopting me too, so we can be together all the time like a real family." Her words stopped me cold. Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her, the card's glitter sticking to my shirt. In that instant, I felt Walter's presence wrap around me, warm and real, taking my breath away. This was it, his true legacy, not the tech empire or the wealth, but the unshakable belief that family, whether by blood or choice, was worth every battle. A reporter covering the event pulled me aside later. "What does family mean to you?" she asked, notebook ready. I smiled through lingering emotion. "Family isn't defined by blood," I told her. "It's defined by who shows up when you need them, who stays through the storms, who makes you feel safe, valued, and loved without question." Walter taught us that, and it's the most valuable inheritance he could have left. Years have passed since Walter's death, and I've found a rhythm in my life, balancing two worlds that mean everything to me. At Campbell Tech, the small business division I built from a single idea has become a cornerstone of the company. What started as a subscription service for affordable cybersecurity now serves thousands of clients, from mom-and-pop shops to growing startups. I walk into board meetings with confidence, presenting strategies and crunching numbers, feeling Walter's influence in my steady voice. His lessons on patience, learned from watching him navigate tough deals, keep me grounded when debates get heated or egos flare. Then there's the Walter Campbell Foundation for Family Reunification, my heart's work. We've opened 5 new centers across the country, each one a warm, inviting space like Campbell House in Chicago. Soft lighting, cozy chairs, and walls painted in soothing blues create a haven where siblings torn apart by foster care can reconnect. Our counselors, trained in trauma, guide kids through the emotional waves of reunion. Joy, fear, anger, hope, all in one messy, beautiful package. So far, we've helped over 700 siblings find each other, some reuniting for good, others building bonds through regular visits. Every success story feels like a nod from Walter, a reminder that his belief in family drives us forward. Running both the company and the foundation is a juggling act. Mornings might start with a Campbell Tech strategy session, analyzing market trends over coffee. By afternoon, I'm at a foundation center, meeting with social workers or reviewing grant applications to fund more reunions. Evenings often end with quiet moments at home, flipping through Walter's old business journals or reading letters from families we've helped. His words, written in that precise, slanted handwriting, still guide me, urging patience in the boardroom and compassion in every case we take on. I've learned something profound through this work. The deepest wounds, the kind that cut so deep you think you'll never heal, can transform into something powerful if you let them. When Frank and Elaine abandoned us, it felt like they carved a hole in my heart. For years, that hole ached, raw, jagged, a constant reminder of betrayal. But with time, therapy, and Walter's love, I've reshaped it. Instead of hardening into scars of bitterness, those wounds now flow with empathy. Every time I meet a kid at Campbell House, eyes wide with hope or fear, I see a piece of my younger self. Their pain resonates, and I know how to listen, how to help because I've been there. This shift didn't happen overnight. There were days when anger surged, hot and consuming, especially after learning about Frank and Elaine's scams. I'd imagine confronting them, demanding why they chose greed over us. But Dr. Bennett's words kept me anchored. Forgiveness isn't for them, it's for you. Letting go of that hate wasn't excusing them. It was freeing myself to focus on what mattered, building a life of purpose, not dwelling in their wreckage. The best revenge, I've found, isn't about striking back or causing pain. It's about rising above the hurt, using it as fuel to create something meaningful. Frank and Elaine left us with nothing but a note and a stranger's doorstep. But from that abandonment, I built a career, a foundation, a family. Every sibling reunion at Campbell House, every new client at Campbell Tech, feels like a quiet triumph. A way of turning their betrayal into joy and purpose. I picture Walter smiling, knowing we've taken the worst they gave us and made it beautiful. My personal life has grown richer too. Michael, the kind-eyed engineer I met at that foundation gala, is now a steady presence. Our relationship deepened over time, built on late-night talks and shared dreams. He's my partner in every sense, joining me at foundation events, cheering on new center openings, and even helping with logistics when we're stretched thin. His calm strength balances my intensity, and together we're planning a future, maybe a family of our own one day, though we're taking it slow, savoring each step. Tommy's thriving in New York, his art a vibrant thread in our story. His latest show, Fractured Light, sold out in days, its swirling colors capturing our childhood's chaos and hope. He's become a voice for foster kids, using his platform to fund art programs in underserved communities. Last month, he launched a scholarship for young artists in foster care, covering supplies and classes. It's what kept me going, he told me over a video call, his face lit with purpose. Art was my way out. I want to give that to others. I see Walter in him too, his generosity, his drive to make a difference. Sometimes, late at night, I pull out Walter's letter from that final reading. I trace his words, feeling the weight of his pride and love. He saw potential in me when I was just a scared 13-year-old, huddled in a group home, clutching his book on women inventors. He believed in me before I believed in myself, and that belief carried me here. To boardrooms, to reunion centers, to a life I never dared dream of back in Pittsburgh. One memory stands out, sharp and vivid. A year ago, at Campbell House's second anniversary, a teenage boy named Javier approached me after a reunion event. He was lanky, with nervous hands and a shy smile, holding a crumpled photo of him and his sister from before they were separated. "You helped us find each other," he said, voice cracking. "She's in Ohio now, but we talk every week. I'm saving up to visit her this summer." His gratitude hit me like a wave, and I hugged him, fighting back tears. In his eyes, I saw Tommy's hope, my own resilience, and Walter's legacy shining through. That's what keeps me going. The knowledge that we're changing lives, one sibling at a time. Every reunion, every smile, every kid who feels seen and loved, it's all a piece of Walter's gift. He taught me family isn't just blood, it's the people who show up, who fight for you, who make you feel whole. He was that for us, and now we're that for others. So I keep moving forward, balancing spreadsheets and sibling reunions, board meetings and heartfelt thank you notes. Some days are tough, grief still sneaks up, or a case hits too close to home. But Walter's lessons hold me steady. Compassion for those hurting, patience for the long game, and a stubborn refusal to let pain define me. I'd love to know your stories. Has someone from your past come back, chasing something they thought they could gain? Did you face them head-on, walk away, or find some middle ground? Drop your experiences in the comments. I read every one, and they remind me how connected our stories are. If my journey resonates, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share it with friends who might need to hear that family is about love and choice, not just DNA. Thanks for being part of this with me. And never forget, from our deepest pain, the greatest gifts can bloom.